Welcome to the Cup of Nurses podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to Cup of Nurses podcast. We're your hosts, Matt Sartrick and myself, Peter Fendera. We got a couple of topics for you guys today. We're going to talk about abortion, aspirin, almond milk, and some new technology called CRISPR.
The CRISPR. Welcome, guys. Thank you for watching. Whoever watches, whoever listens, thank you as well. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and give us some feedback and comment what you guys want to hear. So the main topic that we start off today is about aspirin. And up until this point, for the past few decades, aspirin has been used as the main secondary prevention drug for anybody that has a history or had a heart attack or a stroke.
Exactly.
And anybody that is a risk for, or not even had one, and it was used.
Yeah, so it was common knowledge and common practice that a physician would prescribe aspirin, or they will recommend you to get an over-the-counter aspirin of 81 milligrams and to just take it to prevent any kind of stroke or any kind of clots forming.
Yeah, and the reason why aspirin is used for this is because it's an NSAID. So not only does it work for pain, it also is a non-steroid drug which helps reduce inflammation. And around our body, we have like little platelets kind of circulating around. And what they do is, let's just say you get a cut, they go to that site and they kind of patch it up nicely and create like this wall to prevent you from bleeding. Well, aspirin actually takes, aspirin, the drug, kind of makes your platelets sticky and makes them not stick. So when it comes to having a heart attack or a stroke, let's just think about it like you have like a plumbing system, and you have like this nice giant opening of your veins, blood flow, and what starts happening is plaque starts forming, things, cholesterol, things like that, all this unsanitary lifestyle, and you start getting occluded. So let's just say you have an artery, now it's like half the size, and the worst thing that could happen is that plaque could break off, and it breaks off, it creates like this cascade of more clotting, which completely could reduce your blood supply. So that's a heart attack. Let's just say that clot travels up to the brain, boom, becomes a stroke. So we used aspirin for the longest time, and now the American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology basically said that it is not going to be the main drug to be used.
Yeah, just like with any kind of other medication, there does have its side effects. And in this case, since it, you could say, kind of slows down the process of clotting up a bleeding artery or vein, something that bleeds, so the platelets come and patch it up. This makes you more prone to GI bleeds or bleeding somewhere else, like the stomach. It does affect the stomach lining. You're more prone to stomach ulcers, GI bleeds, and that kind of, those kind of, you could say, problems, which are more prone in older adults if you're above 70, for the most part. And any kind of stress, like in the hospital, you're more prone to GI bleeds.
Yeah, so anybody that's over the age of 70, it's actually not beneficial for you to take the aspirin if you have no history of, because it could do a lot worse than good for you. And let's just say anybody that has no history of heart attack, no history of stroke, you really shouldn't be taking an aspirin.
Yeah. So current practice is, if you don't have any history or a low probability of getting a heart attack or a stroke, you should not be taking aspirin. And if your physician recommends that you take aspirin, you should probably second guess that. Maybe they might not be caught up on the new details and new research. But if you're at no risk or low risk for stroke or heart attack, you should not. There's no need for you to take it.
Tell them it's from the Cup of Nurses podcast. Source, American Heart Association. You'll find all the information there regarding aspirin. So next topic, which is kind of big and trendy right now. I think Alabama, the governor, her name is Governor Kay Ivey, or Ivey, whatever. She basically signed this law that completely bans abortion. So not only, let's just say you're raped or like there's some incest happening, you cannot get abortion at all. It's completely legal. And let's just say a physician were to...
Completely illegal.
Completely illegal, sorry. And let's just say a physician were to perform some kind of abortion. Well, it's a Class A felony, which is punishable up to 99 years in prison. So
under no circumstance you cannot get an abortion in Alabama. No matter what happens, you cannot get it. You'll be taken to court, and so will the physician, which is pretty drastic because most states are still kind of on a border, or they're leaning towards maybe legalizing certain abortions compared to none. But I guess Alabama went the whole way and said no.
What's your viewpoint on abortion? I know it's a pretty, controversial topic here.
It is a controversial topic. I don't think there's one right answer. I think a lot of people would agree with me that abortion should be legal in certain circumstances. Like completely making illegal for abortion, completely making abortion illegal under every circumstance. I don't think that's the right way to do it. For example, rape. I feel like you should be able to abort a child that you did not want in that kind of circumstance. Or if it impacts the mother, so if the baby is causing the mother complications that can possibly lead to death.
I think there's a rule for that. Oh, actually, no. This is Alabama.
Yeah, so I guess it varies by state, but there is. I'm not sure if it's like a law, but there's some kind of gray area where if a mother comes in and she has a baby, and a baby is
she's at risk for dying,
her life,
basically.
So it's up to the physicians to decide if they should take that baby out and have the mother live, or it's up to the mother. I'm not sure how that exactly works, but I believe that if the baby is causing damage or potential death to the mother, I think she should be able to say, "Hey, I want to abort this baby." If no circumstance. Same with incest. If that's both we agree that's pretty messed up. I think you should definitely be able to abort a baby in that kind of situation. But if you're using abortion as another way of like contraception, I think that's not right.
That's wrong, and it kind of creates this cascade of I could just get the baby out, and that ruins morals, to be honest.
It does ruin morals, and you have no consequences for sex initially. Everybody's going to be having sex with everybody because you're not going to worry about getting pregnant, because you could either be on a birth control, or if you do get pregnant, you just abort it whenever you want, which is just a waste of life if you think about it.
And then another state, Georgia. So May 7th, the governor of Georgia, his name is Brian Kemp, he signed a bill that basically would ban all of abortion when there's a fetal heart rate. So it takes an ultrasound machine to basically check for the baby. If there's a fetal heart rate, abortion is illegal, which is a little bit better because a fetal heart rate is detected within, I think, 6 weeks. So you have that leeway. Let's just say there's rape or there's some kind of incident. You have that right to get an abortion still. And then after 6 weeks, there's technically life now. There's the baby's actually has a heartbeat. It's illegal. So that's actually a less cruel way of implementing abortion law.
Yeah, it is a bit less cruel way, but I've never had a baby, but I don't think you really feel like you have something growing in you past 6 weeks.
We can't describe that feeling, guys, unfortunately.
Yeah, if any females out there, but I'm pretty sure it takes a lot longer for a woman to feel that she has something growing in her. Probably longer than 6 weeks, which is still kind of unfair. Because imagine if you get raped, that's not really something you talk about. It's kind of hard for an individual to come out and say, "Hey, I got raped." And what if it takes her 5 weeks and she doesn't get, pregnancy test until like week number 7 or 8, and she did get raped, and she didn't come out till 2 months afterwards? It's kind of really too late.
Yeah, and there's also let's just say in high school, you get bullied. If you're looking back at things, it's so easy to be like, "Well, why didn't you just tell somebody? Why didn't you tell a grown up? Or why didn't you do that?" Well, in that moment, all that pressure and everything, you just didn't speak out and you were holding everything in. So I could imagine somebody that's like a rape victim or something, is scared to tell either, police or their own family, and it just gets, pushed away.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. But now I think about it with the whole fetal the heart rate, that's, a lot of people would consider that to be life. But what about those those cardiac cells that we grow in a petri dish? They technically have a heartbeat, because they're all because cardiac muscles have the pacemaker.
Yeah.
So if people argue that life starts with a heartbeat or a pulse, then technically those cells are living as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, all life is valuable, and all life matters, and that's where this gray area happens of this topic of abortion. There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah,
it's just your viewpoint. It's just your ethics on things.
Yeah, healthcare isn't plain white and black. There's a lot of gray, a lot of ethical stuff, especially now with the new technology coming out and everything that's going on in the world. It's not yes or no anymore.
It's not.
Which is completely understandable.
Especially being on life support and being hooked up to machines. We could prolong your life for weeks and days, but we have to find a balance being what's your quality of life, and whether is that life worth living for the pain and suffering that you're enduring. You know what I mean?
Completely agree.
And that's one of my viewpoints on getting a tracheostomy, for example. That patient is alive and all that, and I'm very happy for him, but that patient is in a nursing home. They don't get taken care of that well, unfortunately, or they're bedbound for a very long time. They get created pressure ulcers. they're very high risk of pneumonia. They keep coming back to the hospital with the same stuff. They get pneumonia, they get septic, they come back, you give them antibiotics, they leave, they come back in a week or two, and it's just this ongoing cycle. And then you have to ask yourself, how is that person's quality of life? Is he truly happy? Or is it family members that are like holding on to them because they can't let go, and they're creating more suffering within themselves and the family member?
Yeah, the one thing we gotta really consider as nurses is we see the worst of things. We only see the recurring patients that come back because they're sick and they don't want to adhere to the plan or the way their life is supposed to be managed, and they come back. But what we don't see is when things actually work. Like something like you said, someone gets a trach and they get readmitted for pneumonia. There's a lot of times people get trachs and they live completely fine. We just don't see them. We forget about them because they're out in society. They're having fun. They're living life. We just see the bad ones. That they come back, they get readmitted. People have LVADs, they have machines in their heart, and they live fine. We just don't see them. We don't see them because we work in the hospital. We only see them when something when something bad happens.
That is a good viewpoint.
It's a little bit unfair to say that you shouldn't do one thing because you are going to have a poor quality of life, because I've seen people get this done and they get a poor quality of life. It's you can't just generalize that, because people live happily with trachs.
That is true. Thanks for sharing some perspective there, Petey. Next topic that we're going to touch about is almond milk. I'm sure everybody watched documentaries about the cowspiracy, and this viewpoint that cows are emitting a lot of methane gas and it's bad for the environment. But a lot of people don't know that they're choosing a healthier route. So they're trying a plant-based milk, but we don't know that it's harming the environment just as much. So we did some research about almond milk, and just to kind of shed some light, 80% of almonds are grown in California. And California is also the state that has a lot of droughts, and they've had a pretty bad drought period. And we're not realizing that how much water it's taking to consume or to produce almond milk. So I think we looked up stats here. It takes 1.1 gallon of water, which is 5 liters, to grow one almond. That's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water. Very significant amount just for almonds.
Imagine how much plants could be alive and be grown with that much.
Yeah, a lot of people from the vegan community, or people that are really plant-based, they like to bash on people that eat animals. But if you think about it, with this almond milk scenario, it does use up less water than raising a cow for milk. But with that cow, you're getting milk, and you're getting beef, you're getting other things.
It's being supplied to a wider population compared to just making almonds.
Exactly.
And in 2015, Blue Diamond Company, or it's called British Almond Breeze, basically any almond milk you go buy, it's probably that company because it's California based. There was a lawsuit because only 2% of the whole ingredients in that carton of milk actually had almonds in them, which is crazy. And to give you a scenario, a handful of almonds, which is one serving, is about 160 calories compared to 30 calories in that milk. That handful of almonds has 6 grams of protein, and your cup of almond milk has only 1 gram. So where are the nutritional values there? And we look at the back of the nutritional label and we see, there's vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, but we're not realizing that these companies are just fortifying their product with vitamins, and they're not really from an actual plant source.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the nutritional difference is between synthetic vitamin B12 and actual vitamin B12, but I'm sure it's not identical. I'm sure it has I'm sure natural B12 probably is a lot healthier for you than the synthetic B12. And I was very unfair that you were saying that 2% of almond milk is actual almonds.
Yeah.
Think about it. If only 2% of the almond milk is almonds, the rest of it's food coloring, just water and flavor.
But you as a shopper, what are you buying almond milk for? You're buying it for the sake of almonds. You're buying it for that product, for that plant that you want to consume, but yet the manufacturer buying it from you is lying to you.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's super unfair.
Yeah,
and they'll label almond milk.
So back to the environmental talk. If you want to look for a different, let's just say, alternative to almond milk, and you still want to stay away from dairy, by all means, the next best thing that leaves the least environmental footprint on the environment would be pea milk.
Yeah, pea milk and coconut milk. We've actually had pea milk last week for the first time. It wasn't bad. I wouldn't probably eat it with my cereal. I'd probably maybe drink it once in a while. But it's just, I guess it's a little bit like an acquired taste. It doesn't taste anything like peas. But it uses a significantly less amount of water to produce than almond milk or dairy milk.
So if you're very pro-environment, you should probably ditch your almond milk and either choose coconut milk or choose pea milk.
Yeah, I actually didn't mind it at all. I thought it was pretty good. Just something new.
It's okay. Maybe you'll just share with that one day.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. The chocolate milk's good, though. I like chocolate milk. That was good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. Another thing we're going to talk about today, guys, is something called CRISPR-Cas9. CRISPR it's a system. It's mainly
Hold on, guys. Take a deep breath before we do this because Peter's about to go in on some crazy knowledge about a discussion that he found online.
Yeah.
Go.
Actually, I found this out from a tattoo artist in Chicago. My girlfriend was getting a tattoo, and he randomly brought this up. I don't know how we got into the subject, but that's how it happened.
You researched it, you liked it, and here we are.
Yeah, so CRISPR-Cas9, it's basically function of the immune system of a single-cell organism like bacteria. So as we know, if it's a single-cell organism, it only has one cell. Unlike us humans, we have multiple cells. When something attacks us or affects us, like a virus or a different kind of bacteria, we could sacrifice a few cells for the sake of our lives. Single-cell organisms do not have that kind of benefit, so what they have is called CRISPR and Cas9. That's their way of fighting like a virus off. So you think
let's put the viewer in the perspective. Thinking about it, you're on this giant lake, and you're like the single individual in this giant lake full of different humans, fish, and predators. And how are you supposed to survive? If there was 10 of you, maybe we could throw one guy in the water to find out what's on that side of the lake. But here, it's just you and its survival. So bacteria figured out a way to survive, right? The longest, and how to stay, evolution basically, right?
Yeah, I guess pretty much it'd be evolution.
Evolution.
But this is how basically our immune system works, is every time a virus enters this thing called CRISPR-Cas9. CRISPR is the whole system. Cas9 is just an enzyme that does some of the work. So what happens is this virus enters the bacterial cell, and then when it attacks the nucleus, because what viruses do is they implant their DNA and RNA into the bacterial RNA or DNA, or our RNA and DNA. So what this system does is it actually takes a copy of the virus's DNA or RNA and it saves it and archives it. And it keeps that continuously with each virus. And that's how it learns on what's going to hurt them and what's okay to enter. So like I said, this is the archive. So what happens is the CRISPR is the archive.
So this bacteria is basically learning every single thing that it has come in contact with. And it's keeping this book of memories, technically.
Or just viral.
In this essence, just viral infections that could harm them. And they have like this playbook just kind of ready to go, right?
Just copies of the viral DNA or RNA. And then what Cas9 does, Cas9 is an enzyme or I believe a protein. I'm not sure they're interchangeable. But what Cas9 actually does is it actually takes that viral DNA that's stored and it goes out and finds it and it cuts it. And then when it cuts it, that part of the DNA RNA is unable to function, so it gets destroyed. So ideally what scientists did nowadays is they found out that the CRISPR and Cas9 can be put into different kinds of cells, like eukaryotic cells, like human cells, human tissue, and it works just the way it does in bacteria. So this is a very new thing going on, and it has a lot of potential, especially with gene editing.
And also has a lot of ethical issues and moral issues that we're still not ready maybe to take into consideration, probably, right?
Yeah, I feel like slowly we're kind of dabbling into the ethical stuff. Now we're kind of more trying to figure stuff out.
We're still trying to figure out abortions here, and now we're jumping into the topic of gene editing, and I don't know if we as a society are probably ready to tackle that. I'm sure we are if it's for the better, correct? Yeah. There has to be that fine line.
Yeah, we always thought about life as in, like you think about natural selection and random mutation. We're now entering the time where we have unnatural selection and like specific random mutations. So before everything was done at random and by chance, now we could actually have the potential to change the future of our bodies and about everybody else.
AK, we're able to manipulate our own DNA. Which in essence is playing with God's hands, if that's what you consider it.
Yeah, it has, of course, has its positive and negative. It's like I said, it's healthcare, so a lot of gray area. But some of the capabilities of this CRISPR Cas9 system is we could actually cut out bad DNA. We could add on more DNA, or we could replace DNA.
Yeah.
Another thing that we could do
I actually want to cut you off for a second. So for those people that are trying to like visualize this, we have to visualize DNA, correct? So you know how you have the double helix which spirals, and on DNA you have little nucleotides and they're all labeled A, B, C, D, E, whatever, right? And that's our genetic information. That's our code. And what this technology is able to do is able to cut the bad code, which is, let's just say, causing you to be at risk for a specific disease. So like, let's just say, I think there was research that they could maybe stop HIV, correct? Yeah. So they would go into your little DNA and they would cut the bad DNA that's the bad code in the DNA that would make you susceptible to HIV, and just implant some other code that will prevent that from happening, right? Or like some kind of other diseases, and just hope for the best technically right now, right? Because we don't have enough information and history of what would happen.
Well, yeah, we're not actually 100% sure if that'll work. But the technology that came up recently is that before we were just able to cut out the bad part of the DNA, and then hopefully the DNA puts itself back together properly. But now what we could do is we could actually cut it out and put it, like you said, put something else in there in the meantime. But this is such new technology that we don't know what the repercussions are when we fully genetically modify a human, or what the offspring is going to be of that human.
And let's just say this already happened, correct? It's verified that they already use this technology to grow a pair of twins in China. Yeah,
that was did last recently, but they were more successful in other things, like, let's say, like plants.
Okay.
They figured out how to change colors of like a Japanese flower that was only purple, and they were able to change it to white. So that was done fairly successfully. They're also trying to work on how to change animal organs to fit human organs. So one example was they tried to put a pig's heart into a human as like a trial. It wasn't successful. The person ended up dying 2 weeks after. But using CRISPR, there's actually two issues if you're using animal tissue and putting it into human tissue. First one is rejection, because it's a foreign tissue, so your body doesn't really know what to do with it. And the second issue is infections and like diseases, because certain diseases can cross between animals. So there's like a retrovirus that affects pigs and humans, and it could affect both of them. Because there are certain viruses and bacteria that could only affect a certain animal, but there's also viruses and bacteria that could affect like two at the same time, or like, multiple species. So what they're trying to do, or what they did for a pig's heart, is they were able to turn off a gene that causes a specific retrovirus that can affect humans and pigs. So the chance of you putting that heart in a human, the chance of you getting that virus is 0%, basically. Wow. So instead of you being risk for that virus and rejection, now you're just at risk for rejection. So now I'm trying to mess with that.
So you know how like there's like those like lab pictures of like a mouse with like a ear sticking out of it? So are they using CRISPR technology to manipulate that? Like the rat's structure where it has like an ear on top of its back instead?
Well, I mean, I'm sure they can. That's probably more of like a accidental mutation.
Okay.
But what I was reading on before is that what they are also doing is trying to find out more of what genes cause certain things. Like what genes cause you to have blue eyes, for example. They can use that with CRISPR by cutting out the DNA strand and just leaving it blank to see what kind turns off.
So guys, that's basically designer babies. And that leads into like the ethical part of things. Like, let's just say in the next 5 years, we are going to be able to go to the store and pick out a freaking baby, basically. You're going to be able to say, I want this kind of nose, I want these kind of eyes. No, those lips are a little too luscious. Make them a little smaller. Like, imagine making a designer baby. Like, what is life in that case? What is a creation of life? What's the beauty of that life when you could genetically code your baby to your perfection of your idea of that?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Personally, I'm not really too against it. I'm completely for it, especially the aspect of CRISPR being used to treat genetic disease like Huntington's disease.
Yeah.
Like you said, those babies in China with the doctor. So a doctor was able, he did actually unethically, he didn't tell the family what he was doing.
Illegally.
Yeah. So what he did, he was able to turn off the genetic component of being susceptible to HIV, because as humans, when we are born, we're all susceptible to HIV. What he was able to do is actually locate that genetic code and turn it off. So these twins are technically HIV. They're unable to get HIV.
That's crazy.
So, like I said, it happened last year. So these twins are. We're not sure if it works or not. Now the ethical thing is like, do you try and infect these babies with HIV? Do you just, when they grow up, do you let them have kids? Like, how is that going to affect their kids since they're genetically modified?
Yeah, and we're not realizing that just like cloning and just like mutations and just like every body has a cancer cell, right? And we're killing off these cancer cells, but eventually they keep mutating and changing, and it's creating cancer. We're going to create one generation of these clones, let's just say, and then what's going to happen in another generation, because eventually the DNAs between two partners are going to be crisscrossing, and you're going to be creating mutations of that clone. And what could happen? What if there's error? Because it's not, nature's, the reason why nature is beautiful because it's made naturally, correct?
Yeah.
Now we're going to be editing, what's going to happen 3 generations of that clone? What's going to happen to it? I don't know.
You never know. You just don't know.
And
I'm all for this technology. I'm all for this getting better. I mean, I would love to edit a baby in the future if that's possible, but I doubt it's going to happen within the next 10 years. I doubt it.
I think it's cool that we're able to prevent diseases, and we're able to, let's just say, you won't get this, but where do we draw the line from the ethical standpoint and say this is too much? Because just like look at what's it, like a very controversial scientific thing that has come out that really changed things?
That changed things, like cloning sheep.
Probably cloning, or let's just say lab-grown meat. We might feel very bad about eating meat that's grown in the laboratory, but in the next few years, maybe our environment is going to get so bad, or we're going to find all this research that let's eat meat that's basically made by scientists.
Yeah. There's a company out there that went public that's grows meat in the lab. I don't know how it tastes or how it works, but if it tastes just as good as beef and has the same nutrition content, whatever, I guess I'll be all for it. But then what are we going to do with all those cows? It's going to stop having cows, and you can have them as pets.
Maybe we could take those cows, use some CRISPR technology so they could make almond milk, and just so we could save all that damn water.
Yeah. Well, actually, what they could do is with fruit is with ground cherries. They're not very desirable. Well, they taste good. I've heard it's like a combination between like a mango and like a citrus fruit. But the main issue with those is that they grow very large and they like to take over territory. So what these scientists were able to do is actually make these ground cherries smaller, more compact. So they grow the same amount of cherries, but at a more compact area, so take over less area, and they also were able to grow them 25% bigger.
Wow. So is genetically modified organisms basically CRISPR in a way? Because we're basically able to take corn, change genetic information of that corn, and make it less susceptible to droughts and famines, and it could withstand colder temperatures.
Yeah, CRISPR is definitely something like that. It's gene editing.
Okay.
There's different ways to do it. CRISPR stands out because it costs a lot. It costs a lot less than any other gene editing thing out there currently. But the only thing with it is it hasn't been used as much as all the other ones. But the reasons why it's so popular and so big is because it's so easy to do and it's so cost effective.
Okay.
And so many potential. Because you could naturally take any kind of DNA or RNA and change it up. And it's very accurate.
So what do you think is happening in Area 51 then?
I have no idea, but I'm about to watch a documentary pretty soon.
If the 1970s they had technology about fingerprint scanning, and then it came to be in like 2005, imagine what's already out there that's known.
Yeah, if we already heard on the news that this man from China was able to turn off the HIV gene in babies, there's probably some more crazier stuff going on out there. Yeah, for sure.
And it's kind of cool that these people are stepping out and doing these things because the truth should be out there. And then we as a society should make our own decisions, whether that's morally or ethically correct or not.
Yeah. It's a huge gray area, though. I'm completely for it. I think we should genetically modify whatever, as long as the benefits outweigh the risks.
We don't know the risks. That's like all these cell phones and all this technology, all this Wi-Fi, all this Bluetooth,
5G.
5G right now that we're all hooked up to. How do we know it's not like altering some genes in our body? How do you know that that radiation that the companies are saying is safe is possibly causing harm to us? Because there are scans, CT scans, that are basically you talking on the phone is heating up your side of the brain, correct?
Yeah.
And cell phones have been out for the last 25 years, 30 years, and that there hasn't been a whole generation that had cell phones on them. We're gonna be probably one of those generations that have been having a long-term cell phone use. And what are going to be the repercussions of that?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that in our lifetime, we're going to have somebody that dies because of cell phone use. It's completely possible.
Yeah, just like truck drivers that have brain tumors. They're very susceptible to it because they have the Bluetooth on for 16 hours a day or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of times when this technology gets implemented, people or the companies don't do large-scale experiments, so they're not 100% sure how this is going to work. They have like small group studies that say, yeah, it's safe, but then if you put it on a global and a worldwide scale, it has a lot more repercussions. And then when it gets engraved in our daily life and we use it every day, it's a lot harder to get rid of. Like imagine if someone said, hey, cell phones, if you're on your cell phone for an hour a day, you're going to get cancer when you're 50. Imagine, are you going to be able to not use your phone for less than an hour?
I'm going to have to turn off social media.
It's a lot harder.
No more Instagram stories.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to change it when it's so easy to us in our nature. But then it might be too late. Yeah. Moment of silence.
Moment of silence there, because you just spoke some truth, man. Couldn't say it better myself here, Petey.
There you go. That's our new catchphrase.
That's a new catchphrase. We're gonna.
And what did we learn today as well after the gym? What did the guy say?
Keep it smooth.
Keep it smooth.
Keep it smooth, man.
Keep it smooth, Oakland.
All right, guys. This is today's episode. What did we cover? Aspirin. If you're not susceptible to heart disease, don't take it. Ask your doctor. If he's on that old news, pull up an article from the American Heart Association and shine some light on that man.
Yeah, you teach him.
You teach him. Drink some pea milk instead of almond milk.
Peas as in peas, like the vegetable pea.
Exactly. Abortions, that's just up to you. Decide what you want. And then CRISPR, you should think maybe you want a genetically modified baby.
Use it on your kids. Be part of the research.
It's coming. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next week, man. Take care. Subscribe, like, follow, comment. Anything else around those lines.
Have a great day from Oakland.
Take it easy.